Okay, we've talked about rotating the hips and trying to rotate the hips quickly with the technique that we're using. Now, I want to tie in with the first module here where we're talking about using the diaphragmatic breathing to engage with the core muscles. But if I just show you an example first, if I want to rotate something that's round, okay, if I've got a biggish object, turning it 180 degrees, and do that fairly quickly. If I get a much smaller object like this pen, and I want to rotate that 180 degrees, it's much easier to rotate this one 180 degrees quickly because it's smaller. Okay, a bigger object, there's much more movement to rotate it 180 degrees. So if you want to rotate something, rotate anything, not necessarily 180 degrees, but if you want to rotate anything at all and do it quickly, it's easier if it's smaller. Now, we can't physically make our hips smaller. Whatever size your hips are, that's the size they are, and we can't make them smaller. Okay, but if you're concentrating on rotating the hips, you tend to use your external muscles, particularly your thighs and your legs and so on, and your buttocks, and they're all used to rotate it, and it's like the big circle. In the first module, we talked about diaphragmatic breathing, pulling the diaphragm down to engage the core muscles. Now, if you do that, and you focus on the core muscles, now you've got a small object. Now when you do your rotation, instead of thinking about rotating the hips, think about rotating the core muscles. And you find everything kind of moves very, very fast, okay? If I think about rotating the hips, I can still move fairly fast, but by making that center of rotation smaller, bringing it into the core, just using those core muscles rather than the big external ones. Okay, much, much faster without more effort. Okay, because when I do it that way, I'm actually feeling it inside. I'm not actually thinking so much about my external muscles. So I'm rotating it more efficiently for two reasons. One is I'm using less muscular effort because I'm using the core rather than the external ones. And also I'm concentrating on a small movement rather than the big movements. Okay, so hope that helps you. It takes a while to get the feeling. This is not an easy one to get straight away. This will take some work. But again, the more you work on your diaphragmatic breathing, the more you work on engaging those core muscles, the easier this will get, okay, and the faster you'll be able to move. Now, when it comes to diaphragmatic breathing, you can practice it while you're watching telly, you can practice it while you're sitting on a bus, you can practice it just about any time you like. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you can nearly always practice your diaphragmatic breathing. Even when you're at work, sitting on the computer, you can practice diaphragmatic breathing, okay? So I would suggest that you really make a point of practicing it and really get used to engaging your core muscles and get a feeling of feeling inside your body and feeling so that core, okay? What the Japanese used to call the hara, Chinese call the dantian. Feel inside, feel that engagement, okay? I'm not talking about tension, I don't like the word tension, but feel the engagement of the core muscles and move from there, move from inside, not from down there, okay? Can you remember the original Karate Kid films? If you've seen the original ones, particularly the second one, you might remember this, the drum on a stick. Okay. At the end of the film, Daniel, the Karate Kid, is having his showdown fight at the big finale. He's fighting this Okinawan Karate Kid, and suddenly there's a noise, and both of the fighters stop, they look around, and all the Okinawans who are watching and unable to intervene, they're all standing there with little drums doing. Now, they was obviously sending a message to the Karate Kid. And the rest of it, then he starts fighting in a very stylized way, using his hands a little bit like the beaters. His attacker comes in with a blow to the body, he blocks it and punches. Another blow comes into the body, he blocks it and punches and starts using his arms like beaters. Well, that to me is not the true significance of the drum on the stick. It looks good in the movie, but it wouldn't have worked if the attacker started punching to the face instead of the body. Then it would have been blown. It wouldn't have worked. But there is still a very, very strong significance to the drum on the stick, which I'd like to share with you. To make it work efficiently, well, if we compare this to the human body, the stick that holds a drum, that's basically your spine, your back. So it's a nice straight back. The drum is obviously the shoulders, and the beaters are the arms. Now, to make the arms work efficiently, first of all, the stick needs to be straight, and also we put the power in at the base. Okay, now at the base, where I'm putting the power in, where I'm putting the movement in, that would be the hips. Okay? As the stick is nice and straight, it's transferred very, very efficiently up to the top, and the beaters, or the arms, move very, very freely. Okay? If you bend your back, which is like this bent stick, which is one I prepared earlier, if you bend your back and then you try and put the power in, you can still do it, but it doesn't work anywhere near as efficiently. Okay? So that is basically when somebody's leaning forward. If you've got a straight back, if your back is straight, your spine is straight, then your techniques, your arms, everything moves a lot more fluidly and a lot more freely. Okay? Notice, again, I'm putting the power in at the base, or the movement in at the base. I'm not doing it halfway up. I'm not trying to turn the drum. That's like putting your shoulders into it. Trying to put the power in at your shoulders. We're not putting the power in at the shoulders. We're putting the power in where the hips would be. Okay? And that's when it all works properly, when it works smoothly. So, although it's a little toy, if you're an instructor, this is a great way of demonstrating it to your students. Okay? Just get two of these, take a hacksaw to one of them and glue it up and sellotape it, whatever it takes to kind of keep it bent. But yeah, it's a great way of demonstrating to any of your students if you instruct, or even to yourself. Just get two drums and bend one of them and see what happens, see how difficult it is to do it with a bent stick. And that is a bent spine. Okay, so following on with that example with the drums, okay, it's quite easy to demonstrate this, especially if you're a teacher or whatever, and you want to teach it to a class, or even just get a feeling for yourself. If you just straighten your spine up, okay, straighten the spine up, and sometimes people use this as a warming-up exercise, feet about shoulder width apart, just twisting the hips and let the arms flop, okay? Now, I'm not putting any energy into moving my arms. I'm putting all the energy into moving my hips. I'm just letting the arms flop. Okay? Now that's quite easy. If I bend forward a little bit, which is what a lot of people do when they're punching, they'll start leaning forward. Okay? It might work with the first punch, but if you're looking at doing a combination of punches, it's awkward. And easy way to demonstrate this, just lean forward a little bit. Now try and do the same exercise. It becomes very difficult. Okay, you can't move your hips so fast. The shoulders feel very clumsy. The arms don't move in any kind of coordinated manner at all. Straighten the spine up, try it again. Everything moves nice and relaxed. Okay, so this is part of the reason why you want the body vertical, okay? Nice straight spine, okay? With spine straight, tuck the chin in lightly, okay? Don't force it in, okay? Sometimes when people are sparring or getting a big carried away, they tend to, get their head forward, okay? And it's a nice forward feeling. You've got the feeling of, I want to go for it. But it breaks the structure a little bit, okay? So I'd say keep the chin in slightly, and also just lightly tuck the backside in, Okay, so again, don't force it in too far, don't squeeze it in, but just lightly tuck the backside in, lightly tuck the chin in, and that gives you a nice straight spine. Okay, and then when you do that exercise, everything's nice and easy and flows easy, which again, when you're looking at multiple techniques, multiple punches, everything will flow a lot faster there as well, yeah? Okay, so that's the first thing. Chin in, backside in. Next thing I want to look at is when we punch, very often we're taught body square to the front, okay? As I'm facing that way, so my body's square. Whether it's a chokazuki, if I'm doing a yakuzuki, okay, people normally say square to the front, okay? I would say just take it about 5 to 10 degrees past the front. And I'll tell you why. If you put your arm up in front, put your arms up in front of you, that's nice and relaxed across the shoulders and across the chest. If you pull them in, you'll feel just a little bit of squeezing. It's not dramatic, it's not an awful lot, it's not something that's going to be really uncomfortable, but that way, just completely in front of you is a little bit more comfortable than pulling them in, okay? So if you punch with your hips square, and you're punching to the center line, you're putting just a little bit of tension or a little bit of stretch in there, which you don't need at the time, in your shoulders and across your chest. And like I say, we want to go from a feeling of compression or stretching to the relaxed position, and at the end of the punch should be the relaxed position. So what I would say, the correct position of the hips when we're punching, if you put both hands out directly in front, now think where your center line is, okay? Rather than move the hand across the center line, move your hips till your hands come to the center line. And that's the angle you want your hips at, which is about 5 to 10 degrees off square. Okay, so when I do the other punch, okay, again I'll turn the hips around the other way. So each time I punch, it's 90 degrees across, from the arm to the shoulders is 90 degrees, okay? That way is less than 90 degrees, okay? So just take your shoulders or your hips a little bit past square, okay? So that when you punch, you've got the square, you've got 90 degrees between your arm and your shoulders, okay? But you've got to turn your hips in a little bit to get there. Now, the other thing that gives you is when I do the next punch, I've got a small hip rotation to take me there. If I'm going like, so we say 5 degrees this way, when I punch the other way, now I'm 5 degrees the other way, I've got a 10-degree hip movement, which if I just keep the body square, all I'm doing is using my arms. And I've seen a lot of karate people practice that way, just the arms, okay? Turn it round, like I say, you've got a more comfortable alignment throughout the shoulder and the chest, plus you've got that you've got that 10 to 15 degree hip movement. Okay? It's just a small hip movement, but it makes everything more dynamic, okay? And if you're doing a combination like Sonbonzuki or 3-point punching, it's the same thing there. If you step forward, and a lot of people tell you on a stepping punch, your hips should be square, then you've got to do a reverse punch, and they also tell you your hips should be square, you've got no hip movement for the second punch, okay? You can land and maybe you've got a bit of hip movement there, but then you're doing the other couple of punches with no hip movement behind it at all. So if you just let that come in that 5 degrees that way, 5 to 10 degrees that way, and then 5 to 10 degrees that way, then you've got a nice hip movement for each of the punches. Okay, if I show you side on, I'll do it slowly first. Okay, so I step forward, first punch, second punch, third punch. Now you can see each time, punch, punch, punch. There's just a small hip movement. Okay, it's not big, but as you get more advanced, you should be able to generate the power with a smaller movement. Okay, and again, when you're looking at a combination of 3 punches rapidly, having a smaller hip movement actually allows you to move the hands a lot faster. If you've got to do a big hip movement every time, then so it gets a little bit more awkward. So I'll show you that one again. Okay, this time I'll do it fast. Okay, and try and see the hips moving if you can. Okay, so hopefully you can see the hips moving, bang, bang, bang. And they're not going more than 5 or 10 degrees either side. Just enough to bring that into the center. That's all you're looking for. That's your angle, just to bring the fist into the center. Okay? So, to me, that's quite an important alignment. Partly because, like I say, it gives a relaxation across the shoulder and chest, and partly because it allows you to have a hip movement for the second movement, rather than just getting it square and then just punching with your arms only.